Okay, good morning. Let's just dive right into the app. I released a new version of Overmind yesterday, so maybe we can now actually use the latest. Isn't it latest? I think it's latest. Overmind React latest. Okay, so what I merged is all the stuff we did with figuring out state machines related to typing. Also reverted the dev tooling approach for message passing. Kind of gave up on that project because yeah, it's a really difficult issue. I don't even want to talk about it. Okay, maybe I can remove that thing. Cool. But yeah, it was kind of fun diving into Overmind last session or like yesterday, because we kind of started at the front where like changes to state happens, and then we kind of went through the whole chain of actually seeing it happen inside the DevTools. So that was kind of cool. Oh, let's sign in here. Yes, so what we're going to do today, we're actually going to oh, didn't I commit this? Anyways, maybe we can do that first. What did we do here? Edit current. Oh, it's the edit current week stuff. Okay. Yeah, anyways, what we want to do is to actually introduce this new screen, which is called edit current week. And the thing is, editing the current week and editing the next week, the UI looks exactly the same. It's just what date, basically. What's kind of like the starting date, or like what week are we looking at? Is it the current week or is it the next week? So when you tap the different days of the week, it references different actual dates. So what I thought we could do is build a component that that kind of is this thing. I'm not sure if I would call, well, I guess it's a UI component. But I'm a little bit unsure how we're going to structure it, because if you imagine you have this list, and inside that list we actually have this weekday picker for every profile. So it's like a card, and it has for every profile it has this weekday picker. But then and it also has a description of the backlog item, and then if if it's an actual date, it shows this date icon instead of being able to pick the weekday. So you had two different kinds of cards or list items, but they are always in the same order. So I think we could actually create a UI component where we just pass in, okay, here are the backlog items, and let me know when you change something. And then we, the edit current week and edit next week, they both use the same component, passing in the backlog items, but they treat the interactions differently. So when you tap the weekdays, there's a different handler in edit current week and edit next week. And yeah, and then you also have the ability to like archive these things, which would be the same, I guess. But yeah, that doesn't matter that they have the same handler. So I think we're going to do that because conceptually these two are two different components. They do different things, but most of it is the same. So let's try to create this UI component that takes backlog items, creates the list, and then gives handlers for dealing with it. What's a little bit annoying, I guess, is that, well, I don't think it will be a performance issue, but like when we tap these different days, like it will re-render the whole list. Or will it? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we want to include Overmind here. So when I think about UI components, I don't think they should have Overmind in them. They should just be pure React and mostly related to styling. Sometimes some interaction, but it's like internal state. So maybe we should rather make this yeah, maybe we should create like a week component, and then because we have all the backlog items there, and then when we change them, we change the current week data. Let's see, let's just talk this through. So we have the backlog list, which is where we can do, we talked about doing the sorting, like basically putting them in order. But we also need, so what we're doing when we're toggling the weekdays is that we're actually changing another data structure, which is like the data for the week. But we don't have to deal with that first. Let's get some UI there first. And then we can deal with the actual toggling. But the point is that there are two sources of data. You have the actual backlog list, and then you have the data structure that indicates what days of that week is actually active. Like what we would ideally do here, like I'm kind of optimizing it, but it's this idea that when you have a list of items and you do something in one item, you don't want the whole list to reconcile again. And we can deal with that in Overmind, because we can, for example, create a derived. So we go and we grab 1 week back in time, current week, and then the next week. So we have like 3 weeks of data. And then we kind of split that data into 2 weekly data points. So we have like an object of, how will this be? Like previous, current, and next. And then when we are in the current week, we are looking at the current data, which means that, yeah, how should we do this? Yeah, the current data, and that's, the current data is then a dictionary of using the ID of that backlog item, and then what days are active. So we're kind of transforming the data, because now it's in, yes, so that's the thing. Like, this is really, really interesting. We should draw this up. Excali draw. Let's see. Doing some Codesandbox stuff. Okay, so we have our list here. Yeah, this is actually really fascinating, because the data we get in is backlog items. So it's like an ID, and then we have a description, and we have, yeah, it's basically a description. So ID 1, ID 2, ID 3, like that. And then we have the actual activation of the days, because that's unrelated to the actual backlog item, which means like, I don't remember what we called it, but let's just call it events. So we have events, and then we have a specific day. So for example, 2020, something like that. And then we have an array there, which then says like ID1 is active that day, ID2 is active that day. So this is nice. This is like optimized for dealing with that stuff. Yes. maybe I guess we could have the events inside the backlog item itself. No, we don't want to do that because we don't want to. Well, it could be a collection. So what I'm talking about is like we don't want to download all the events when we grab a backlog item. But if it's a collection, well, no. We want to structure it this way. And the reason we want to structure it this way is because we have a backlog item which just describes the item itself. And then we want to effectively be able to say, okay, these dates, go and grab everything we have activated on these dates. So it's much easier to have this data structure where we just pass in all the dates and then it extracts what backlog items are active on the different days. Or we would have to like grab all the events, or we will kind of have to go into each backlog item, its events collection, and then grab the days from each backlog item, which we don't need to. So now we just grab all the items and then we go and do specific days and then we have what we need. So I think that's the most effective way to do it. But the list is different. The list is, so we have something here, description. And then we have these tiny pickers here, like the different days. Let's do this. Something like this. I guess that's one date too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Okay, so we have that item. So the thing is that we build this list by going through the backlog items. But then to figure out which day is active, we kind of have to pass in all the days as well. Well, at least the days that are related to that specific week. And then we toggle it. So the thing is, what we want is this list to reconcile based on the backlog item. But now it reconciles based on the day. So what I mean is that this component here does a check inside every day here. Does it include this backlog item? Which means that every time we change the day, every single item in the list needs to check, am I now in the day? And that's kind of what we don't want. Like for this app, it wouldn't really matter, but that's kind of, this is interesting, like list optimization. So what we rather would want here is to kind of like have a data structure where we explicitly go and look through this list, and then we create like a new object that says, okay, so now we kind of want this other data structure, which is ID1, and then we would do the opposite. So this would be like 2020, like that, and then the other dates, which are active. And then we would do the opposite. So we would, in this component, we would look at this specific ID and we would check, is this day active? Is this day active? Is this day active? And then when we manipulate this array, only that single component will re-render or reconcile. That's kind of what we want. But it adds some complexity because we have to create this additional object. We have to convert these events into this kind of object, which is a derived, so it's not a big deal. We could even create a derived, which is a combination of the backlog item and it also holds this stuff. We could do that. So then the calculation is really only on the data. It's not React reconciling because that's the expensive part. Like in theory, it's the expensive part. It's the reconciliation of React. So we would still, when we click these weekdays, we would still go, okay, go to that weekday in the events, toggle the ID of the backlog item, which would trigger the derived of this. It will kind of look like this. Days, something like that. And then, yeah, we could have like the description and if it's a date there. Something like that. And with yes, we toggle this one, it recalculates the whole list, but that's really inexpensive to do that transformation. But when we do that, it should, well, does it? Oh, I guess no, because now we get into the same issue, I guess, because now all the, since this is a derived, everything single item looks at that derived, and then it's actually new every time. Yeah, this actually doesn't work. The way we actually would have to deal with this, oh yeah, this doesn't really work. Yeah, this is kind of annoying. But it's, again, it's, we could just go ahead and don't care about this, but that's what we do on this stream. We think about these tiny details. So how would we actually deal with this? Because we do want, well, oh yeah. Okay, I guess what we could do here, this is interesting. When we receive this data, the backlog items, so we could create a single effect here that grabs the backlog items. It grabs the backlog items. It grabs all the events for the previous, current, and next week. And then we produce a state out of that. So this is not part of our state at all. We create our own concept of backlog items. So maybe we could even, I think it should still be an object because it's easier to reference IDs that way. But then we have the backlog items and we have the events from the effect. And then we create like our own backlog item, which has like the description. And then we have the days, just like we talked about here. Which one of them are active. And then whenever we, so when we render out these items, we give it the backlog item, which holds the description and the days. When we now toggle one of these weekdays, it will change the days array here. But it will also tell the server that it changed. But when it tells the server, it points to like where we hold the data for that day. So in this case, in the client, we add the current day to the days array of a backlog item. But on the server, we add the backlog item ID to the arrays of a day. Because that's optimized for handling days, and this is optimized for rendering. And this is really interesting because we meet this a lot of the time. And I'm like, not often, but sometimes I get like questions working with a backend developer, like how would you like this data to be received in the client? And the point is that the way it's most effectively received and rendered in the client is not necessarily the most effective way to store it in the database. And then the question is like, should the server transform this data before it sends it to the client? Or should the client grab the data that's available and then do the transformation in the client? Now, since we don't have the ability to do anything on the server, we'll have to do it in the client, which is maybe like one of the drawbacks of Firebase. It's, you can't, like, you have to optimally store the data, but that's not necessarily how you want to display it in the UI. So you kind of have to do these transformations in the client. Interesting. But yeah, just for the sake of kind of dealing with this, I think we should just do this. So We keep our data structure in the database because it's optimized for fetching days. Which backlog items is attached to what days. And then we, when we go and grab all the data in an effect, we transform them into this, which is optimized for list rendering. Yes, let's try that. So where do we start? I think we need to, yeah, so we need to refactor a little bit here. So we can still have this backlog item just as normal, but we just add this days array, which is basically a string array. And this holds the date for whatever days are active on this backlog item. Or maybe we should call it active days. Or days, weekdays. Well, days, because it's cross week. Yeah, and then the question is like, what happens if, well, I don't think we need to think about that. So when we fetch the data, what if you have your app open from one day to the next? Well, I guess you wouldn't really. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, actually, I think yeah, that's interesting. Oh, you know what? As I mentioned, like the days are stored by date key. And I wonder if, oh, like in Firebase, it's possible to like grab everything from this point, but I'm unsure if you can do it based on key. So like you can say, you can go 1 week back and then you can say, give me all the keys from that first day of last week. And then it just gives you all the keys. And if anything is added related to after first day of the last week, then it's just streamed down to you. That would be like super ideal. Let's see if we can do that first. Firebase, Firestore query keys, query by object key. Interesting. Oh, actually, why by you have an object layer where? Yeah, that's the collection where. Should do the trick. Oh, interesting. Get alt by user ID. Yeah, so we should be able to do that. So we can use the document ID and then we can say more than the first day of the last week. And then we would just get a stream, like we would get a snapshot and then we would just get an update every time a new day is added that matches that query. Yeah, let's try that. I think that's going to be best because then it doesn't matter when the app is open. It will still get the data. Okay, let's try this. So we added days here. Let's store that. And then we have this backlog list. We can still have that backlog list because that does the sorting. But we're not grabbing the days yet. So what I think we should do here, I think we should, how much time do we have? Oh, time flies. What should we do to finish this off for now? I think we should create this new effect. Because now we have this effect that is called stream backlog. But what we really want here is, yeah, so we can still have stream backlog. And then what we do here, this is where we kind of create the thing. So what we're going to do, we're going to say days here. Because this is something that's not part of... Why is it complaining about this? Oh, as string. This is so annoying. So we give it an empty array of days. And then we're going to have a second stream, which is the events. And those events are going to populate this days array. That's how it's going to work. And we will always get, so you can't add a day to a backlog item that doesn't exist. So you will always get the backlog item first. So we'll always have that, so we can safely always point to the backlog item. And then I believe stream, did we call it events? Did we call it events? I don't remember. I think we called it weekdays. I think we did. Let's see. Cloud Firestore. Bum 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 bum. Backlog. Oh, I think we need to look in the code. So, oh, yeah, weekdays. Okay, stream week days like this, and we're basically going to do. Oh yeah, we had this dispose thing. Let's add one for dispose stream weekdays. Let's see. We can't do that, can we? Oh, did I make it like an... No. That's interesting. How can we call... This should error. Why doesn't it error? Does it error? That's weird. Because this should error, because we don't have that initially. That's strange. That's very strange. So we should like do this. Are we even calling that thing? Oh my god. DevTools, hello. Oh, sorry. Oh, did I mess it up now? Oh, I messed it up. Let's see. Yeah, I think I was running the wrong version of the DevTools. Anyways, because this should be, well, this dispose, yes, dispose stream backlog, then we do it. Okay. Anyways, we're going to do exactly the same here. Oops. Let's see here. Yeah, so we do. That's weird. How did that? Yeah, I found that really strange. Okay, anyways, dispose, what did I call it? Oh, wait, this? Oh, what? Now I'm super confused. Why am I saying this? Is this something old? Okay, I'm insanely confused now. Dispose stream backlog. Why is it erroring? Cannot find name? Oh, was it the wrong? Oh, sorry. Stream backlog. That's why I was so confused. There we go. Yeah, so I probably just added that and it errored without me noticing. Because it shouldn't have been this. That was really weird. No idea why I added that. Anyways, I think it's important that we... oh, sorry. I'm just really messing around here now. There we go. Okay. So when we stream the weekdays, we still need, yeah, we need the same thing. We need the profile and we need an action that gives us, I guess it gives us, let's call it weekdays. Oops. Weekdays. So we have to create that type. Oh, we have it. Oh, damn it. This sucks. So we have weekdays. Yeah, it's not really weekdays. It's just days. Okay, so I'm stressing a little bit now because I want to finish it, but let's just call it days, okay? Because the days equals the key is a string. Well, we can say this is the date, and then it's an array of backlog item IDs. So let's, oh, my computer is really working now. What's it working on? Is it OBS or? Oh. Yeah, OBS requires a lot of resources. So let's see. We have our action. So what we want to do, we want to go to, where do we want to go? We don't want to go to backlog. We want to go to weekdays. And then we want to do this query thingy. Collection. This is, I didn't know you could do this. So we'll do this thing. Was this even JavaScript? Oh, maybe this wasn't JavaScript. Yeah, I didn't. But got to there. This isn't valid API. What the fudge? But it did point to. Oh yeah, that's the field path. Is this like new API? Okay, let's try this. We're going to just write it ourselves. We're going to do this thing. That's really weird. Why did they write that kind of thing? Is more or equal to get first day of last week. That needs to be a util. So we are going to say we are going to do this thing, and then we're going to are we going to set day? I don't think we're going to set day. We're going to like not reduce, but what's it called? Like minus his last sub days. So we're going to sub days of a new date by, I guess, 7. That should give us like the first day of last week, I think. And then we can use this thing, get first day of last week. And now we should get all documents that are equal to or more than that. And now the question is, this is a string. And does it understand that? So I'm always confused by this. So if I were to do like 2020 0801, is that less than 2020 082? That's true. That's good. What if I change to like 21? Like, I think, yeah, because it does. Yes, that's interesting. So in JavaScript, it will turn these two things into numbers. So that will always work. This is the inference. Is it called inference? No, type coercion of, because we're using this sign here, it will try to convert both sides into numbers. And so dates are always going up, so that will always work. But the point is, does Firebase do that? Does it? I guess it does. It will try to convert this into a number, and it should work the same way. Okay, let's see now. So we have our action. Okay, so we have our docs, and this should be the docs here should be days. And then for each snapshot docs, we get like the day. So we'll say day ID, and that should now be the data. I believe. Oh, day.data as string typing. Okay, so I think this will work. And now every time there's a change to the weekdays, this thing will trigger. It will. Do we even need to do this? Docs for each. Yeah, I think we need to do this. Yeah. Anyways, let's see here. Let's trigger we have to test this. So we're going to stream the weekdays when on auth change. I guess it's here. Stream weekdays on weekdays update. So we'll have to create that. Where do we have this stuff? Oh, it's on the actions. Export cons on weekdays. Action days. For now, we're just going to not do anything about it. We can deal with this later. Hopefully, we'll remember our little plan here. We're rather going to see if we actually get some data. So this is empty, and that's good. But what should happen now? Like theoretically, when I now go and add a new backlog item, it should trigger on backlog update. And we're going to try to add a day, and that should trigger this thing. So let's see if that works. Some cool thing. So we're going to say that this happens on Wednesday. And when I add this now, what happened? Oh, you see that? I did get... Oh, what the hell are we doing? What the hell is this data structure? Oh, maybe we did... I thought it was this was an array of... Oh no, wait. We changed that, didn't we? But what is this? One of them is the backlog update. That's a 2PW AL LP. What the hell are these things? But what worries me the most is that we're actually getting the weekday update before we get the backlog update. I didn't think that would be possible. Actually, that sucks. It's not a huge deal, but I thought that would be consistent. Anyways, yeah, we have to look into why the hell do we store it like this. I do remember we talked about being able to store certain like meta information when you do toggle a specific day. You can like add some additional data to it. But what is this lex2? It's none of these. It's not a backlog item. What is it? SD1? Okay, so that's the... Okay, cool. So that's the backlog item. But what is this thing? Oh, I just have to check this before we quit. I guess that's the negative thing about doing like half an hour a day and then diving into all other kinds of things. Oh, it's the profile. Of course. Of course, of course. Okay, so we deal with this data structure, and that's... Yeah, of course. We forgot about the profile. We completely forgot about the profile. So the days, it needs to be by profile. Actually. Yes, exactly. Maybe we can just change that right away. So days needs to be... That's the day. That's okay. And then we have profile UID, or we can say UID. And then we have a string of the things. Or actually, yeah, so maybe this should just be the weekday item. Because then we have all the days. We have our query. We can look into each profile for each day. And then we can check, is the backlog item in... Oh yeah, anyways, this is what comes from the server. So it's like this, and it's like backlog item ID string, and then it's just true for now. So this is what we're getting from the server. And then when we, so this is perfectly okay. But when we now have our action here, when we grab these days here, we are going to move those days into our backlog item to optimally render them. But instead of having just a string here, we have to do it by profile ID or UID because there are different users. Yes. So what happens now? Like in theory, when someone toggles a day, it doesn't matter if it's this user or some other user. We have our backlog item, they toggle. The backlog item has a map of UIDs and an array of backlog items related to that UID and that day. And then when someone toggles something, it will trigger this action here, where you just get an update of whatever has changed, like which day has changed. And then we'll go in. I don't think this actually will work. Oh, oops. I think we lost the stream for a short second. This won't actually work because when we now... Well, yeah, it will work. It will work. Yes, of course it will work. Sorry. So what happens? A user toggles a day. We'll get a day, updated day here, which holds profile UIDs and the backlog item IDs. So what we'll do is... Yeah, so what's a little bit not too good about this is because this update actually holds all the backlog items. So it means like, yeah, it holds all the backlog items for that day, which means that we'll update all the backlog items that has been activated for that day. But we really only want to update the actual change. So now we're looking at the change as a day, but we really want to look at the change as a day on a specific backlog item. Yeah, that kind of sucks. Wow, this is surprisingly difficult, like doing this optimization. I might be thinking about this the wrong way, of course, which I often do. Yeah, because we are listening to weekdays and we're just looking at the document ID there. Can you do queries where we say, okay, I'm going to look at what, like, dynamically. So I'm going to look at all the keys of each document, but I also want information about the document itself when it triggers. So kind of, we would not query like the document ID itself. Well, we do that, but then we also well, I guess this is not like, oh goddamn, this was... So what we would have to do, we would actually have to check if it has changed. We could do that. No, but that's like, oh. So in this action here, the thing is, like, we will always get all the backlog items for when a day updates. We get all the backlog items that are active on that day, even though you just toggle a single backlog item. That's the problem. So we will reconcile in the list all the backlog items, because what we do is that we just replace or do we do that? So we're kind of going through, maybe this is okay. Yeah, I think this is okay. So what will happen, like, okay, let me explain. I'm doing a lot of stuff in my head now. So what happens is we go in here, we get like a day, 2020, and then we have a profile UID. So let's say Alfoni, and then ID 1, true. So we have activated backlog item ID 1 on the profile Alfoni on this date. So what happens is, for example, let's say I go in and I activate on the same day, I want to do something else, like a different backlog item. We trigger that, and what we get in here is this whole thing. So what we need to do is we basically, yeah, but this is going to work actually. So what we need to do, we need to go through every day that updated and every profile, and then every ID. And then we kind of check, So we'll get to the first ID here, and we'll say like, we'll grab the state backlog items, and then in this case ID 1, and then we'll look at the days of Alphony, and we check, does it include ID 1? Sorry, does it include 2020? Right? No, yeah, so this is a tricky thing. Like what we really want to do here, we just want to say what we want to say here. So this is the essence, is object.keys object.keys like days 2020 Alphony. This is what we want to do. So the days that are active on this backlog item equals the IDs here. That's kind of what we want. But what happens now is that, no, sorry. This is not what we want. No, sorry, this will work. Wow, this was mind-bending. So we're looking at the current array, and since, well, what I wonder is, what if we remove a day? What happens then? Okay, so this is okay. We have added one, and that works. So we'll just push that day into the array. So that's good. It's been added. That's what we do. Why we do the includes is to check if it's there from before, and if not, God damn it! Why did I have to make this so complicated? We'll push it. But then we might have the opposite. So suddenly we remove this thing. And now we're getting an update with this stuff. Which means that we kind of have to do the opposite as well. We have to, yeah, so we kind of have to, yeah. So we have to go through so we have to go through the days as well. And then we have to check if not day in, where is it? Like 20 days, 2020 Alphony. So if not a day is in there, then we have to say like splice it out. Oh my God. Like this is what we kind of have, like we're doing some insane optimizations here. We want like truly optimal rendering of that list. You can imagine if you did this with Redux, you wouldn't be able to deal with this at all. Everything would be like, any update would be like a new array. Everything's new every single time. You wouldn't be able to optimize this. But we can do that with Overmind, because when we do explicit changes, that is understood by the tracking. So basically what happens here is that now it understands that this specific backlog item on this specific profile even has a change in its array. So it will only render the actual, we could make it even only render the weekday picker for this, which is kind of cool for that specific profile. And then when we remove something, we want to explicitly remove it on that array. That's kind of what we're doing. We're operating on that specific array instead of building it up again, or building the days up again, or building the backlog item up again, which you would typically do in a more straight brute way, which would have created cleaner code. but it's not as optimized, and we're for some reason diving into this optimization stuff. So I'm just going to keep this here, and yeah, like I will, like, it's fun to think about these optimizations and how to optimally do things, but I'm totally a proponent of writing code that's more understandable. And I don't think we're actually doing that now. It would be way easier to just, every backlog item keeps like keeps its own set of days, and then we just go and grab all the backlog items. And when we do that, we don't get the collections of events, but for each backlog item, we would then use this query that we have to go and grab all the events that has happened on that backlog item from the first day of last week for every backlog item. It's not as optimal to grab that data, but it would be way more straightforward. And then we just have this backlog item that we operate on. We don't do anything else. When we make changes to it in the list, it only reconciles that single item. So the optimization is really in the query to the database. But yeah, the problem is when we tie these days to the backlog item, it means that we need to access the backlog item to understand what has happened. We have to access all backlog items to understand what has happened on certain days, which I don't think is a good thing. It's more ideal to be able to point to any day and see what happened this day. So if we're going to do historic things, it's way more performant to say, like we talked about, what happened, what do we typically do on a Monday, like the last year? And then we would effectively be able to go and grab all the Mondays. And then we can grab all the backlog items related specifically to those days, even if they're archived. And then you will get your result. Well, now you would have to query every single backlog item to figure out if the day is inside that backlog item. Ooh, this is a difficult one. But yeah, maybe we can. I don't think we should change the data structure of the database to make the client happier. I don't think that's the right approach. So the client needs to deal with optimizing list rendering. And that's what we're doing here. We're keeping the data structure as is in the database. It's optimized for querying. Like, it could probably be better, but at least we think about it, how to optimally query the data. And then the client just needs to deal with that. And that's what we're doing here. We are creating a client-specific state structure for a backlog item so that we can, whenever we get a change on a specific day, we can point to that specific backlog item, its days, and then figure out what we need to add to it and what do we need to remove from it based on the update. That's like super optimal. We can even, as I said, we can even go all the way into the weekday picker, so that when you toggle on that weekday picker, it only reconciles that specific weekday picker, which is kind of cool. Okay, we went way off time here. Let me just save everything here. Let's keep that comment. So tomorrow, I think we should just implement this thing. And when we have that, we are able to actually render out our list. And we can even start like testing, toggling, and see that it works and everything, which is cool. Yeah, and we can even like optimistically. Yeah, that will be also interesting to see how Firebase does this optimistic thing. Like, does it synchronously trigger the stream when you try to push something into Firebase, or does it happen async? Yeah. Anyways, that's it for now. I hope it was in some sense interesting. Again, it was like going way beyond what's typical for a simple app like this, but that's what we do on this stream. We dive into the dirty details that you sometimes have to when you build like bigger apps than this. Yes, cool. Should I commit? No, let's wait for tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow and have a great day.